The phone line went dead silent right after my son said it. "Dad, we're not expecting you for Christmas this year." It was December 20th, and those words landed like shrapnel all over again. My name is Robert Ellis. I'm 59 years old, a retired Army sergeant who did 2 tours in Afghanistan. I've got a Purple Heart from the day an RPG tore into our patrol vehicle outside Kandahar in 2009. The blast shredded my left leg, left me with a titanium rod and enough nerve damage that the VA rated me at 65% disabled. My monthly check comes to $4,300, and for the last 9 years, every single penny of that money went straight to my son Liam. Liam graduated from Stanford with an MBA, full of ideas about revolutionizing supply chains for small businesses using AI. Nexus Logics. He called it. Smart kid. Always was. But Silicon Valley adjacent life in Austin doesn't come cheap. Office space near downtown. Servers. Hiring engineers. Early marketing pushes. Banks weren't lining up for a 24-year-old with big dreams and student debt. That's where I came in. Let me take you back a bit. After the RPG incident that nearly ended me, I was medically retired. The Purple Heart sat in a shadow box on my kitchen table for years. A reminder of the night I pulled Corporal Ramirez out of the burning Humvee while insurgents poured fire down on us. I chose to drag him to cover instead of diving for safety myself. That medal represented everything. The months away from home, the surgeries, the nights I still wake up sweating from the smell of burning fuel and dust. But medals don't pay rent or fund startups. Liam needed seed money. I started sending him my entire disability check the month after he launched. 9 years straight. $4,300 on the 3rd of every month. Transferred without fail. That's over $465,000 of my blood money poured into his company. When he needed more for equipment financing, the bank demanded collateral. Good credit cosigner. So I did the unthinkable. I sold my Purple Heart to a private collector in Houston for $16,500. Liam cried when I told him. Real tears. The kind I hadn't seen since he was a kid and skinned his knee playing Little League. "Dad, that's your legacy," he said back then. I told him, "Son, you are my legacy. This is just metal." The company took off. Liam's AI platform started landing contracts with regional distributors. By year 4, venture capitalists were sniffing around. Last month, he got an acquisition offer for $3.2 million. His cut after investors would be around $1.8 million. Enough to set him and his fiancée, Sophia, up for life. Sophia came from Houston oil and real estate money. Old Texas wealth. Her family summered in places I'd only seen in magazines. I live in a 700-square-foot apartment in Round Rock, just north of Austin. $1,200 a month, which feels like luxury for a disabled veteran scraping by on what's left after sending everything to Liam. My walls have photos from my service days, commendation letters, and that now-empty shadow box. I'd been planning a simple Christmas dinner for weeks. Nothing fancy, a small ham, some sides. The kind of meal we shared when money was tight and Liam was growing up without much. I called him that afternoon to confirm. "What time do you want me over on Christmas Eve?" I asked. There was a long pause. I could hear office chatter in the background. Keyboards clicking. Professional voices. "Dad," Liam said carefully, "we weren't planning on having you this year." My stomach twisted. "We talked about it." "What do you mean?" "We discussed this." Another pause. I heard him muffle the phone. "It's my dad. You know, the one with the issues." My heart dropped. The voices in the background quieted. Liam's tone shifted sharper when he came back on. "Look, this acquisition is huge. Sophia's parents are flying in from Houston. They're not used to Certain things. You know how you get sometimes the nightmares? The episodes. PTSD makes people uncomfortable around the holidays. The line stayed quiet for what felt like forever because everyone in that sleek Austin startup office had just heard my own son label his Purple Heart father as damaged goods. Then came the soft, knowing chuckles, privileged laughter at the awkward veteran relative. I sat there in my small kitchen, staring at the empty shadow box, feeling the old wound in my leg throb like it remembered the desert heat. But what Liam didn't know was that I'd been recording our calls for months. Old Army habit from patrols where we documented every transmission. Cover your six, we called it. Liam had been distant since the acquisition talks heated up, shorter calls, canceled visits, excuses about investor meetings. A father's gut told me something was off, so I started recording. Now I had proof. I kept my voice steady.
Liam.
Put me on speaker. He sighed heavily. Dad. This isn't. Put me on speaker. Son. If my condition is relevant to your team, let's make it open. The hollow echo came through. Okay. You're on.
Good.
This is Sergeant Robert Ellis, United States Army retired. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Purple Heart recipient. I'm also the man who funded NexusLogix with every dime of my disability compensation and by selling my Purple Heart medal. Silence. Complete. Heavy silence.
Liam.
Remind your team how much came from me.
Dad.
Please. $465,000 in disability payments over 9 years. Plus $16,500 from selling the medal I earned dragging a wounded Marine to safety under fire. That's my blood money that built this. Someone whispered Jesus in the background. Now explain why my PTSD supposedly makes people uncomfortable.
Dad.
You don't get it. Sophia's family. I get it perfectly. You're ashamed. Ashamed that your seed money came from a disabled vet in a small apartment while your fiancé's parents summer in Aspen. Ashamed that while her dad built wealth in boardrooms, mine was earned in Kandahar. The silence stretched. I could picture Liam's face flushing, his polished image cracking. You've got investors watching. A $3.2 million deal closing soon. But you've also got a $520,000 equipment loan I co-signed. As guarantor, I can call that loan due with notice. Bankruptcy makes investors more uncomfortable than a veteran father ever could. I let it hang for 10 long seconds. You weren't expecting me for Christmas. But you probably weren't expecting this either. Richardson out. I hung up. My hands shook as I set the phone down. 9 years of sacrifice, reduced to damaged in front of his team. The nightmares? Yes. I had them occasionally, especially around anniversaries. But the VA evaluations always came back clean, no clinical PTSD diagnosis, just normal combat adjustment. I was functional, independent. But Liam used it as an easy excuse to distance himself. I walked to the window, looking out at the Texas night, and felt the slow burn of resolve building. This wasn't just about Christmas dinner. It was about respect, about honoring the hand that fed his dreams. And I wasn't going to let him forget it. The next 30 minutes, my phone exploded with calls from Liam. I let them all go to voicemail. First message, angry. Dad. What the hell? You can't threaten my company over a holiday misunderstanding. By the 7th, panic creeping in. The team's asking about the loan details now.
Dad.
Please call back. The 14th was desperate. I'm sorry. Okay. Sophia's parents said they'd love to meet you. We can do dinner exactly how you planned. Just don't do anything rash. Too late. I sat at my kitchen table with a stack of documents I'd quietly kept, every bank statement showing the monthly transfers, the Purple Heart sale receipt, the loan papers with both our signatures. On top was a business card from Elena Vargas, a military affairs reporter I'd met at a Veterans Day event in Austin last year. "Call me if you ever have a story about how veterans are treated by their families," she'd said. I dialed her first. "Elena, this is Robert Ellis. Remember the VA event? I have an exclusive about a Purple Heart recipient whose son told investors his father's PTSD makes people uncomfortable right after building a multi-million-dollar company on my disability money." She was listening intently. Within an hour, she was at my apartment, reviewing documents. The recording played next. Her expression hardened as Liam's voice filled the room. "You know how he gets. The episodes. PTSD makes people uncomfortable," followed by the laughter. "This is powerful, Robert. But it's explosive. You sure you want to go public?" I thought about Liam as a boy. The pride in his eyes when I'd wear my uniform to parent-teacher nights. The tears when I sold the medal. Then the recent distance.
The shame.
I'm sure. But let's start measured. Local first, then see. Meanwhile, I called the bank that held the equipment loan. "This is Robert Ellis, guarantor on loan number." I verified details and exercised my right to call the full balance due. $498,000 remaining. Due in 72 hours. The loan officer sounded stunned but processed it. Notification would go to Liam within hours. Next, I checked my own modest savings, about $9,000. Enough buffer if things got legal. I turned off my phone and let the wait settle. The following morning, Elena's story hit the local Austin news site and veteran forums. It spread quickly among military communities. Liam's LinkedIn lit up with questions. By afternoon, national outlets picked it up. CNN reached out. They wanted me for a segment that evening. I prepared carefully, organized folders, reviewed my VA medical file showing no severe PTSD, only managed adjustment issues. My former commander agreed to speak on record about my stability in service. Liam showed up at my door around 7 that night. His Tesla hummed into the lot, door slamming. He looked wrecked, hair messy, eyes bloodshot. Stanford hoodie rumpled. "Dad, we have to talk." I let him in. He spotted the empty shadow box immediately. Face crumpling. "You're destroying everything over one comment?" The CNN piece already has hundreds of thousands of views. Investors are calling non-stop. "Sit down, Liam." He did. Elbows on knees. The deal is hanging by a thread. They want to know if the company was built on charity from a troubled vet. Why I'd embarrass a Purple Heart recipient publicly. What did you tell them? That it was a misunderstanding. That you misinterpreted. That you were having an episode. There it was again, the episode excuse.
Liam.
Do you actually know what PTSD looks like? Flashbacks. Inability to function. Severe anxiety. Have you ever seen me unable to hold a job, maintain relationships, or handle daily life? He was quiet. You have nightmares sometimes. Once every few months. Around the anniversary. That's grief and memory. Not disorder. But you used it conveniently to be ashamed of your roots without admitting you were ashamed of coming from modest means. He paced my small living room. It's not about money.
Dad.
Sophia's family, they move in different circles. They wouldn't understand a veteran dad in a small apartment who worked odd jobs after discharge. Wouldn't understand families sacrificing for each other instead of just cutting checks. I slid the foreclosure notice across the table. You have 36 hours left to cure the default or lose the equipment. His face paled. Dad.
Please.
I'll pay everything back. With interest. Just stop this. Sorry doesn't rebuild respect. Liam. Respect is shown daily. Not promised in crisis. He left soon after. No closer to fixing it. But for the first time, it felt like I was speaking to my son. Not his polished persona. The public pressure built overnight. Veteran groups shared the story widely. Liam's counterpost on LinkedIn tried to spin it as my mental health struggles, seeking privacy. But the documentation was too strong. Comments questioned the funding source. I met Elena again the next morning. CNN wants both of you live tonight if possible. They're verifying everything independently. The tension coiled tighter. This wasn't just family anymore. It was about every veteran who's been sidelined by the success they enabled. The slow burn of the last few days was building towards something irreversible. I felt the weight of decisions that could break or rebuild us. But honor demanded I follow through. By dawn the next day, the calls had multiplied. 14 voicemails from Liam progressing from rage to begging. I listened over coffee, watching the sunrise paint the Texas hills. The bank confirmed the demand notice was sent. Liam's equipment lessor was alerted. Repossession loomed in 48 hours if unpaid. I drove to the VA for my full records, then met the CNN producer for prep. Elena had escalated it beautifully. The local piece led to national interest. They scheduled a joint segment for that evening on a major show. Liam's team agreed, betting they could make me look unstable on air. I spent the hours reviewing evidence. Audio authenticated. Financial trail irrefutable. Character references from my commander and VA psychologist confirming sound mental health. Liam's PR firm pushed back hard, claiming erratic behavior and threats. They even attempted a restraining order, denied by the judge since calling a cosign loan was legal. The math favored me. Liam had 48 hours to close the deal but 72 to pay the loan. Impossible without the secured equipment. Checkmate in motion. The studio felt surreal that evening. Microphone clipped.
Earpiece in.
Liam paced in the green room with his lawyers and coaches. I was calm, alone with my facts. The host started with my story, the sacrifices, the funding, the exclusion. I laid out dates, amounts, the recording. When they brought Liam on, his polished responses faltered under the played audio. His own words echoed nationally. The discomfort comment, the laughter. In the split screen, we faced each other. What do you want to say to your son? The host asked. I looked at Liam directly. Remember when I sold the Purple Heart?
You said you couldn't let me.
I said you were my legacy. But legacy means honoring what came before, not erasing it for appearances. Tears welled in his eyes. Dad. I was ashamed. Ashamed of the small apartment, the janitor jobs after your injury. I wanted Sophia's family to see me as coming from their world, not military struggle. The studio fell silent as millions watched a son confront his betrayal. The segment ended with his raw admission and my quiet statement. Honor isn't inherited, it's earned daily. By morning, the acquisition collapsed. Investors fled the family drama. The company sold later for pennies on the dollar to cover debts. Liam lost nearly everything. 6 months later, Liam knocked on my door every Sunday evening without fail. He looked changed, leaner, humbler, eyes clearer. The company was gone, but he had a steady developer job in San Antonio at $85,000 a year. Honest earnings. He brought simple meals, paid $500 monthly toward the debt. Sophia stood by him, revealing more character than expected. They married quietly. Dad, I'm paying back more than money, he said one evening.
The respect.
I want to earn calling you father again. We ate in comfortable silence. As he left, he paused. Thank you for your service. No cameras, no audience, just sincerity. Copy that, son. Some battles end in surrender. The best ones end in understanding. But the question lingers. How many families fracture before realizing sacrifice demands honor, not convenience? My empty shadow box now holds a folded flag at the local VFW. A reminder that true legacy lives in the daily choices we make to respect those who bled for us.